Hi, my name is Tuva Berglund. I'm 20 years old from Norway and I'm in my second year on the BA Contemporary Dance course here at Trinity Laban. I'd always dreamt of moving to London to study dance, partly inspired by my dance teacher back home. Since I had visited the city twice before, I thought I knew what I was moving to. But I quickly realized that moving somewhere to actually live there is quite different from just visiting as a tourist. And I found it really nice to be able to decide what I want to do with my time and make my own new everyday life here in London. Being a dance student in London is quite incredible, with its buzzing cultural life and lots of stages and dance companies for shows. I grew up in quite a small Norwegian town, so moving to such a big city as London felt freeing, since there are so many other people here who want to do the same things as you, who think the same way as you. In a city of 12 million people, you'll definitely find someone who thinks the same way as you creatively. There were a few things that surprised me when moving to England and London. First and foremost, the fact that the cars drive on the other side of the road to what I'm used to. So more than once have I briefly thought, why is the dog driving the car when looking at a car on the street? I've also had to adjust my food habits. As a true Scandinavian, I really love bread, but I don't feel the same way about the bread here as I do about the bread back home. But this isn't necessarily a negative thing, because being forced out of my old food habits have made me explore lots of different recipes. I've started making a lot of food which I wouldn't necessarily have made if I was still back home. And then the biggest shock for me was having to speak English all the time. There's something different about having to speak English all the time, and I wasn't prepared for how tiring it could be at times. Like most days, my English is pretty good and I have no problem understanding or speaking. But some days, especially if I'm tired, my brain just takes a really long time processing English words and making sentences that actually make sense to others. If you feel that way, just tell your teacher and your friends. There's no shame in having to look up words to understand what's going on better. There's some key things to think about before moving away from home. And first and foremost, that's where you're going to live. In my first year at Trinity Laban, I lived at Macmillan Student Villages, which is a 2-minute walk from the Laban building where the dance students are. It's 15 minutes walk to King's Charles Courts where the music students have their classes, and then 15-20 minutes to Laurie Grove where the musical theatre students are. You can also look at private accommodation, and regardless of what you're thinking of, whether it be the student village or private, I would recommend that you have a look at the Trinity Laban Students' Union website, since they have a lot of information for new students on their page. I would also recommend that you join their Facebook group for new students, which they set up before term starts in September. There you can get a glimpse of your new fellow students. You can see who's on the same course as you and who might be moving from the same country as you as well. I would recommend that you research the area you're going to live in, know how long the nearest shop is. Less interesting but still really important stuff. How to get a UK phone number and bank account. How quickly you need to sort this out depends on the costs your local phone provider or your local bank has on using your phone or bank card outside of your home country. There's lots of information on how to do this on the Trinity Laban Students' Union website. I would also recommend that you have a look at the exchange rate between your local currency and the British pound, as that gives you somewhat of an idea of how much money you're spending if you're buying a chocolate for £1, for example. And then for my top 5 tips on how to get used to living in London and England. My first tip is to get to know your local park. There's lots of parks in London. I usually go to Greenwich Park since that's the nearest one and the biggest where I live. And there's also other parks such as Southwark Park in Bermondsey, Deptford Park up Deptford Street and Millwall Park on Isle of Dogs. Then find your nearest railway station or DLR station so that you know how to get around the city. I found that London Bridge is really useful since from there you're connected to the underground network. London Bridge also has National Railway Services connections. So for example, it would take you only an hour to get from London Bridge to Brighton, which is a city close to the sea in the south of England. And then for something a bit different, I would recommend that you have a look at what the different grocery stores have to offer. For me, I go to Asda for when I need to buy my groceries for the week, since that's quite cheap. I go to Waitrose if I need something really specific, as they have a wide variety. I go to Sainsbury's for their double chocolate chip cookies. Moving away from home for the first time can be really scary, so try to find a way to ease your homesickness. Maybe it's watching one of your favorite TV shows from back home, learning how to cook your favorite meal, and then talk to friends and family. Don't lose contact with them, as they're your best support network when you're first getting settled in. And for my fellow Scandinavians, I highly recommend that you check out Scandinavian Kitchen near Oxford Circus, where they sell lots of Scandinavian products, which are really good to have when the homesickness hits you extra hard. And then lastly, it's something you've probably heard before, but I'm gonna tell you again. Have a look at all the pubs in London, and then especially if they do any quizzes. Me and my friends usually go to the Sunday night quiz at the Duke's, which is right beside Macmillan. You can bond with your friends and just have a really good time. I hope some of these tips have been really helpful for you, and if you need more information, then have a look at trinitylaban.ac.uk, which is Trinity Laban's official website, or you can have a look around the Trinity Laban Students' Union website at tlsu.org. Good luck with your application process. Thank you for watching, and bye!